My family called me a failure to everyone who'd listen, but at my brother's engagement dinner, his fiancée gasped, "You're Michael Thompson?" And the room froze, my father's wine glass trembling in his hand. Hey there, thanks for joining me today. I'm Michael Thompson, and I'm here to share a story that's raw, real, and maybe a little too familiar for some of you. I hope you're having a great day wherever you are. Drop a comment below and let me know your city and what time it is there. Now, let's dive into a tale about family, failure, and finding your own path. It starts with an invitation that felt more like a court summons sitting on my beat-up kitchen counter. The fancy card stock screamed money with gold-embossed letters. James Thompson and Emily Davis request your presence. My younger brother James, the family's pride and joy, was getting married, and I, the 32-year-old black sheep, had to show up and play nice. My chest tightened just looking at it, like barbed wire twisting around my heart. 10 years ago, I walked away from medical school, and the label failure has been burned into me ever since. My parents never said it outright, but you could see it in their eyes. Every holiday, every family dinner, every tight-lipped smile when someone asked what I was doing now. I used to be Michael, the genius, the one who got into Johns Hopkins on a scholarship, but after a brutal first year, a battle with depression I couldn't even name at the time, and a total breakdown, I left. That decision didn't just change my career path, it shattered my standing in the family. My mom barely looked at me the same. My dad just stopped asking questions. And James? He kept climbing, kept shining. Ivy League degree, startup success, now marrying into a wealthy family with old money and old expectations. Meanwhile, I rebuilt my life brick by brick. I got into real estate. At first, it was ugly cold calls, commissions that barely paid for groceries, clients who ghosted after weeks of work. But I stuck with it. I taught myself digital marketing, reinvested every dime, and slowly, very slowly, things started to change. I flipped my first house, then 2, then 5. By 30, I'd cleared 7 figures. By 31, I'd hit 8. My company now manages over 40 properties and employs 20 people, but none of that seemed to matter when it came to my family. They still saw the dropout, not the man who had to crawl through his own fire to get here. The worst part? I used my failure money, as Margaret, my future sister-in-law's mom, once called it, to support them. Quietly, I paid off mom's credit cards, I helped dad. Growing up in the Thompson household was like living inside a pressure cooker that never turned off. My father, Robert, wasn't just a businessman, he was a walking resume. He judged success by numbers on a spreadsheet and the shine on your shoes. If it didn't raise the family name, it didn't matter. My mother, Linda, had her own way of control, quiet, poised, always worried in the most suffocating way. Her disapproval came in soft sighs, tight smiles, and the kind of silence that wrapped around you like chains. And then there was James, my younger brother, and the crown jewel of their world. Straight-A student, scholarship kid, corporate star. If there was a magazine cover for perfect sons, he'd already be framed on it. Me? I was the detour no one wanted to admit existed, the kid who couldn't finish med school, who crashed halfway through because his brain was screaming while everyone else just heard silence. I'll never forget the day I told my dad I was dropping out. We were standing in his study, surrounded by heavy books no one read and leather chairs that smelled like ambition. I was shaking, terrified, trying to find the right words. But when I finally said it, his face didn't change. He didn't yell, he just stared through me like I wasn't there. "You're throwing it all away," he said after a long pause, his voice dead flat. "Everything we invested, all our sacrifices, wasted." That hurt more than any screaming ever could. My mom's reaction was quieter but just as sharp. She didn't even speak to me for 2 days. Then came the phone calls, thin walls, you know. I could hear her whispering to her sisters, her voice thick with tears. "Michael's just lost, drifting, we're so worried." Her favorite act was pressing a hand to her chest like a tragedy had befallen her. "We don't know what to do anymore." But not once did she sit with me. Not once did she ask why I was falling apart. Family dinners turned into highlight reels for James. I still remember one Christmas tree sparkling, turkey on the table, everything picture perfect. Dad handed James a designer watch, smiling wide. That's my boy, making real moves out there. When I tried to talk about a small tech project I'd been working on, hoping to connect low-NP folks with community resources, Dad didn't even look up. "Good to keep busy, Michael," he mumbled. James gave me that classic older brother grin, mocking, polished. "Maybe get serious, bro. You know, find your lane." And everyone laughed. At me. I tried to laugh too, but inside I was shrinking. That night, I drove home to my one-bedroom place that smelled like microwave noodles and damp carpet. I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the wall, their voices echoing in my skull. He's lost. He's lazy. He gave up. Maybe they were right. Maybe I was broken. The years that followed felt like I was climbing out of a pit with bare hands. I worked 2, sometimes 3 jobs, bartending, warehouse shifts, even overnight stocking at a pharmacy, just to keep my lights on. Meanwhile, James was climbing the ladder 2 rungs at a time, sending postcards from Barcelona, Tokyo, wherever rich people go to find themselves. My parents hung those on the fridge like trophies. My apartment fridge didn't even work half the time. But the worst wasn't the financial struggle, it was the slow-burning shame. The kind that seeps into your bones, the kind that makes you second-guess your every move. I started a real estate hustle. Just small stuff at first, renting basements, fixing broken sinks myself, making $100 here, 50 there, and slowly, it began to shift. I reinvested everything. I learned marketing, I learned negotiating. I'd built a portfolio. By the time I was 30, I wasn't just surviving, I was winning. But to my family, I was still Michael, the dropout, the almost doctor who threw it all away. And the thing that cut the deepest? I still showed up. I still paid off their debt when they needed it. I still helped James when his startup nearly collapsed. I still sent flowers for my mom's birthday and called my dad on Father's Day even when he barely said 5 words. I was their shadow success, the one they never bragged about, but leaned on when the bills got scary. But no matter how much I gave, it was never enough. They never looked at me like I belonged. They never asked how I built it. They just pretended my story didn't exist. I wasn't a part of the family. They just tolerated my presence like an old piece of furniture no one wanted to throw at. And slowly, something inside me started to change. I stopped showing up with hope. I started showing up with walls. Walls they didn't even notice, because they never saw me, not really. But something shifted the year I started volunteering at a small disability resource center in the city. I'd gone in thinking I was just giving back, helping file papers, maybe offering rides. What I found instead was a front row seat to people's pain, folks trying to navigate the healthcare maze, begging for help while the system shoved them around like numbers on a form. I met single moms juggling 3 jobs just to afford insulin, war veterans denied therapy, kids who hadn't seen a dentist in years. It wrecked me in the best way, and it lit something up inside me. I didn't want to sit around watching it happen, I wanted to fix it. That's how HealthLink was born. Not in a blaze of glory, not with some TED Talk idea. It started with stubbornness, late nights, and a dying laptop. I didn't even have a proper desk, just an old table next to my bed and a stack of library books on programming. I taught myself to code, fueled by instant noodles and gas station coffee. Fingers trembling as I typed out the first lines of what would become my purpose. My apartment was cold in the winter, sweltering in the summer, and always too quiet, but every line of code felt like taking back a piece of myself. The first version of HealthLink was a simple website that helped people find affordable clinics in their zip code. I wasn't even sure it worked until one day an email popped up. Your program helped me find a doctor who finally listened. I cried in their office. Thank you. I stared at that message for 10 minutes straight. I had never heard anything like that from my family. That single sentence did more for me than 1,000 hollow praises from Dad ever could. It became my fuel. At a networking event with bad lighting and worse pizza, I met David Lee, a genius programmer with the social skills of a toaster but a heart full of fire. He asked what I was working on and I told him, half expecting the usual smirk, but instead he said, "You're building something that matters. I want in." We started working out of a stuffy, windowless office above a print shop that smelled like toner and hope. It wasn't pretty, but it was ours. And somehow, HealthLink took off. 10,000 users, then 50,000. Nonprofits started reaching out. Grants rolled in. We went from 2 guys sharing a single laptop to a team of 12, then 20. We expanded across state lines. We helped real people not with buzzwords, but with practical tools that saved them time, money, and sometimes lives. For every time Dad called me directionless, I had 10 emails from people saying we made a difference. I tried telling them my family. I wanted them to know, to see me. I called Mom after we landed a major partnership with a state-run clinic network. I was excited, nearly breathless, telling her about how many patients we could help. Her response? "That's nice, dear. Did you hear James is buying a boat? He's thinking of naming it after Emily's middle name. Isn't that romantic?" I felt my stomach twist. It was like I'd walked into a glass wall again. Then came the engagement dinner. James posted the announcement in the family group chat, the ring sparkling like it had its own spotlight. Everyone flooded the thread with emojis and congrats. I typed a dry "happy for you both" and hit mute. I knew what that night would be, a spotlight on James and me left in the shadows. But this time, something felt different. Maybe it was the growing user base. Maybe it was the stack of grant approvals on my desk. Maybe I was just done playing small. I pulled up HealthLink's dashboard. 80,000 users. 80,000 lives touched. And suddenly, I didn't feel like a failure anymore. I wasn't just surviving. I was building something that mattered. I picked out the sharpest charcoal gray suit I owned, the one I bought after closing a 6-figure contract, and looked in the mirror. I didn't look like a dropout. I looked like a man who knew exactly who he was. The restaurant L'Etoile was pure status chandeliers, hushed voices, overpriced wine. Everything about it screamed, "You don't belong here." But I walked in anyway. Dad shook my hand like I was a client he half recognized. Mom gave me her signature tight hug and fake smile. "You look neat," she said, like I was a toddler in church clothes. James was lounging in his throne at the center of the table, suit crisp, confidence dialed up to 11. "Glad you made it, Mike," he said, flashing a grin that never reached his eyes. The dinner was a slow-motion train wreck of compliments, humble brags, and stories about James's flawless career. When Emily's dad asked me what I did, Dad jumped in before I could speak. "Michael's our dreamer," he said, chuckling, "still figuring things out." I opened my mouth, then closed it. What was the point? Later, Emily leaned over and asked genuinely, "What does your platform do?" I said it connects people with disabilities to healthcare providers, but before I could explain, Dad cut in again. "It's a niche thing, keeps him busy." My voice died in my throat. James leaned back and added, "Not everyone's built for Wall Street, right?" They all laughed. I didn't. Then came the toasts. Dad stood, glass raised, eyes shining with pride. "To James, the son who always made us proud, the one who followed through, who made good on everything we hoped for." Then he turned to me, the pity in his voice thick. "And to Michael, who marches to a different drum. We admire your journey." The table chuckled. I stared at my untouched plate. My heart pounded, but not from sadness, from rage. Quiet building rage. I wasn't marching to a faint drum, I was leading a parade. They just weren't listening. Then Emily spoke. Her voice wasn't loud, but somehow it cut clean through the noise of clinking glasses and family small talk. "HealthLink," she said slowly, eyes locked on mine. "It helps people with disabilities, right?" I blinked, caught off guard. "Yeah," I said, cautious. "We streamline access to specialists, build support networks, connect people with care providers." She sat up straighter, her face lighting up like a switch had flipped. "You're Michael Thompson? The Michael Thompson, CEO of HealthLink?" A fork dropped to the floor nearby. I didn't even turn to see who dropped it, because the whole table went silent. Dad's wine glass froze in the air mid-sip. Mom's hand went to her pearls like she'd just been slapped. James stopped chewing and stared like someone had pulled the rug from under him. My heart thudded, and for a second I thought I might have misheard her, but then Emily kept going, completely unaware that she'd just dropped a bomb in the middle of their perfect little dinner party. "Oh my God," she said, her voice rising. "It's really you? I can't believe this." "My brother, Mark. He was paralyzed in a bike accident 3 years ago, and your platform, HealthLink, it changed his life. It's the only reason he's been able to keep his independence." I stared at her, stunned. Emily looked around the table, trying to pull everyone into her excitement. "You all don't understand," she said. "Mark went through hell, trying to find the right specialists, the right support programs. HealthLink helped him find an adaptive sports clinic. He plays wheelchair basketball now. It gave him back his joy. His doctors recommend it to every new patient." She smiled at me, eyes wide. "You built something real, Michael. Something incredible." And just like that, the room tipped sideways. All the years I'd spent shrinking myself to fit into their story, the story where James was the hero and I was the footnote, started to unravel right there in the candlelight. Emily wasn't done. She started listing features from our site. The way you built that peer forum, the resource map, even the insurance navigation tool. Genius. We've been trying to get our hospital to partner with HealthLink for months now. The work you're doing is massive. It was surreal. She talked about my work like it mattered, like I was more than the forgotten son, the dropout, the failure. I could feel Mom and Dad stiffen beside me. The expressions they wore weren't just surprise, they were panic. Like they were watching a carefully constructed lie come apart at the seams. And then came the final blow. Emily tilted her head, frowning a little. "It's kind of funny," she said slowly, her voice hesitant now. "At a gala last fall, Mark overheard some big-name donors, rich guys, Wilson something, talking about HealthLink. One of them said the founder was this guy who meant well but was wasting time on a little website for disabled folks. He said his buddy's son was the real deal, a finance star. Said the family was Her eyes flicked to mine, realization crashing in. "Oh no," she whispered. "I didn't mean." But it was too late, the truth was already out. Wilson, Dad's friend. I remembered that phone call, the way Dad brushed me off like I was just a kid playing with toys. This wasn't a misunderstanding, it was a choice. They hadn't just ignored what I'd built, they'd erased it. Rewritten me as a cautionary tale to save face in their little country club bubble. They'd painted James as the golden boy and me as the dreamer who never made it because that was easier for them to stomach than the truth. My hands were shaking under the table, but my voice was steady when I spoke. I looked right at them, at the people who'd dismissed me, belittled me, rewritten my life to fit their comfort zone. HealthLink has 80,000 users, I said. We serve people across 15 states. We've signed partnerships with 3 state health agencies and 2 national nonprofits. We just closed a Series A with Silverline Ventures, one of the top healthcare VCs in the country. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. The weight of my words did the work. The silence was deafening. Dad looked like someone had punched the air out of him. His mouth opened and closed like a fish, no sound coming out. Mom's eyes shimmered with tears, not from pride, but from shame. And James, for the first time in his life, had nothing smug to say. His fork hovered over his plate, forgotten. I felt my chest rise, breath finally returning to my lungs. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was drowning in their judgment. I felt seen, not because they gave me permission, but because I took back my voice. Everything they'd ignored, every cruel comment, every family dinner where I was sidelined and silenced, it all led to this moment. I didn't have to shout. I didn't need revenge. I just had to tell the truth. And it hit them harder than any speech ever could. The rest of the dinner felt like picking through emotional rubble. Conversation limped along, awkward and forced. Emily's parents, bless them, tried to steer the mood somewhere light, now asking me real questions about HealthLink, genuine, respectful ones. I answered without arrogance. I didn't need to rub it in. The truth had done its job. My father stayed mostly quiet, his face frozen between confusion and something that looked dangerously close to respect. He reached for his wine glass more than once, cleared his throat like he wanted to say something, but nothing came. My mother shrank into herself, fiddling with her napkin, murmuring things like, "We just wanted the best for you, Michael. We didn't know." Her words were faint, like echoes of old excuses. James sulked the rest of the meal, barely touching his plate, his posture crumpled. The smugness that used to define him was gone. He looked like a kid who'd just been told Santa wasn't real. Bitter, lost, exposed. I left early, not out of anger, but because I needed air. The food sat heavy in my gut, but stepping into the night breeze felt like shedding years of grief, like finally breathing after nearly drowning. That night my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Mom left 3 voicemails, her voice wet with tears. "We're so proud of you, Michael," she sniffled. "We didn't show it right, did we?" "Please call back," Dad, in his usual blunt way, said. "We're impressed. I want to learn more about HealthLink. Let's talk." But I didn't respond, not yet. I let their words sit, heavy but strangely hollow. The approval I used to chase didn't hold the same weight anymore. It was like craving something for so long only to realize you don't need it to breathe. What stayed with me instead was the pride in Emily's voice, the clarity in her eyes when she saw me not just as James's brother, but as a man who built something that mattered. I needed to sit with that feeling a little longer. Emily called too, mortified. "I didn't mean to cause trouble," she said. "I just thought they already knew." I reassured her. "You didn't cause anything, Emily. You told the truth, a truth they were never willing to hear from me." That moment sparked something between us, respect, maybe even friendship. She said James had been different since the dinner. Distant, moody, defensive. I wasn't surprised. A week later, I met James for coffee. I needed closure. He showed up late in a hoodie and sunglasses like a celebrity hiding from bad press. "Okay, Mr. Tech Star," he said as he sat down. "No need to brag." I stayed calm. "It's not about bragging, James. I just needed to know, did you really not know how far HealthLink had come?" He scoffed, rolled his eyes. "You were secretive, man, never shared details," but I reminded him emails, links, the TechCrunch feature I sent him a year ago. He went quiet. Then finally the mask slipped. "Fine," he muttered. "I saw it. I knew it was big. I just didn't tell them." I stared, stunned. "Why?" He looked away. "Because I was the smart one, the one they bragged about. If you became a tech mogul, what was left for me? I needed to keep my spot." His words were raw, but they didn't sting like they used to. They just felt sad. That was the moment something broke in me, not out of anger, but grief for the brother I thought I had. I saw my parents one last time, sat them down and said what needed to be said. No yelling, no drama, just truth. Your definition of success was narrow, I told them, and when I didn't fit, you labeled me a disappointment. I never needed your praise for HealthLink's numbers. I just needed you to see me, to value my effort, my heart, not my resume. Mom cried, Dad said nothing, but I walked away feeling lighter. For the first time, their disappointment wasn't mine to carry. After that, I dove headfirst back into HealthLink. The mission pulled me forward. The team, the users, the stories, they became my real family. My parents' calls became less frequent, more polite, on my terms. The power game they used to play was over. L'Etoile had been the final board and I'd flipped it. At James and Emily's wedding, I was civil. I smiled at my parents, nodded at James, but it was Emily who greeted me with warmth that felt real. During the reception, I caught my parents watching me, not with scorn, not even pity, just distance, maybe regret, maybe awe, but it didn't matter. I had nothing left to prove. I wasn't the shadow of their expectations anymore. I was Michael, a man who found peace not in applause, but in purpose. The story ends not with a tearful reunion or a big family group hug. It ends on a stage, under warm lights, speaking to a room full of doctors, patients, and innovators. Sharing HealthLink's journey, my journey. The applause that night wasn't for a son trying to win his family's love. It was for a man who found his voice, his mission, and built something that changed lives. For years, my family called me the son who failed. But that night at dinner, Emily cracked their version of the story wide open. And once that happened, I stepped through and rewrote the ending myself. Fulfillment isn't living up to someone else's mold. It's building your own shape, no matter how weird or unconventional. It's showing up for your purpose, for your people, and most importantly, for you. So tell me, what's the story you're ready to rewrite?